It is now time for Diary of a Wrestling Fan with Bill Chase. And now, here he is, the man who once wrote a love poem to Baby Spice, Bill Chase! Thank you, Mr. Podcast Announcer, and welcome to another edition of Diary of a Wrestling Fan, the podcast that chronicles my 33 amazing years being a fan of the wonder that is professional wrestling. Thank you for joining me on Spotify, on Anchor, wherever podcasts are streamed. Please subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do on whatever podcast site you are streaming from. That is right. And if you're listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now. Today, of course, we're going to do a little continuation from my last episode. That was WCW NWO Fall Brawl 98. That was a show, that's for sure. And 2 weeks later, a pay-per-view for WWF will take place in my hometown. But before we get to all that, of course, I want to give a quick shout-out to Pro Wrestling Ontario. Follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, you just scroll over to the right of the video screen, and there's the link to Pro Wrestling Ontario's YouTube channel. We got complete matches. We got the Backstage Shenanigans of Foundation. We got complete shows, both Iron Cup tournaments. Please subscribe after the podcast. Okay, we're going to get it right down to it, reminiscing about that red hot time, talking about 1998. We're in the fall. We're in September of 1998 where I last left. And of course, I just watched WCW Fall Brawl. Easy for me to say. You know what? I'm not going to edit that out. Screw it. WCW NWO Fall Brawl 98. The Ravens Saturn match was a big highlight. The War Games match was a gigantic disappointment, I felt. And you know what? I needed something refreshing. Thankfully, the return of Ric Flair really invigorated the WCW fan in me the next night. But I was still upset that there was a WWF pay-per-view in my hometown and I wasn't going. You see, I mentioned this in the previous podcast where my parents and I had a little, not a dispute, I did something stupid. I said this last week. I forged an entire report card back in the spring. My wrestling was limited, but again, I can admit this to my mom now because I know she'd be the one listening out of both my parents. I'd say, Mom, once again, if you weren't listening last week, I was still watching all the time. Not going to lie. But yes, I think the statute of limitations has run out on me being grounded. But anyway, and I'm sure she already knew. But anyway, she's not stupid. So yeah, I was watching Raw and anticipating this whole show. And I'm thinking to myself, there's a pay-per-view in my hometown. It's being headlined by two guys I idolize, as well as Kane. Nothing against Kane. Nothing against him. Okay, I just did not idolize him on the level that I did Steve Austin or The Undertaker. So as it was approaching, my buddies, John Forjak especially, and Adam Pryor, they were both going to this pay-per-view. They both had tickets. They're going together, and they had really good seats, too, from what I understand. And I was pissed. Not at them, but just because they were going. Adam had a tendency to, let's just say, be a dick. He's a great guy now, and and whatnot, but back then he was not exactly the best friend a guy could have. John, on the other hand, was a great friend at that time, and you know what? He wasn't being a dick about it, but he was excited. I mean, I couldn't blame him for not wanting to hide his excitement. I found out a bunch of guys from my classes were going. There's a guy in my communications class who I knew well from my drama class. His name was Matthew John. Someone I still communicate with someone on Facebook today. Back then, he kind of picked on me a bit, but as time went on, we just learned to talk about wrestling, and we later became friends pretty much. And again, we still comment about wrestling on each other's posts and whatnot, and he's a great guy. And he was going too, and he was kind of not throwing it in my face, but he was being kind of a dick about it too. So there were a few others as well. I'm thinking to myself, oh great, I'm like, am I going to be the only wrestling fan of the school not going? But I wasn't too happy about it, and you know what? The thing about my parents, I needed to pick my battles, so I was going to ask for something. Now, this wasn't just a pay-per-view where I could sneak up at 11 p.m. and watch because they had gone to bed, because it wouldn't be the same. Okay, I would have to truly ask for permission to watch this. I mean, it was hard enough asking permission to watch certain pay-per-views at this time. There was a few WCW pay-per-views I missed, granted, because I wasn't overly passionate about asking and didn't really feel the urge to. But really, before my act of stupidity, it would have been no questions. Because okay, I tell my parents, "I'll pay-per-view or this weekend," and they would make plans. So they were good that way usually, and I had no complaints there whatsoever. But again, I'm thinking I should not ask for tickets. Maybe it might be pushing a bit. And to start the school year, it was only September. I was not off to a good start, as my preliminary report card would later show. So as the show approached, I was still kind of holding out hope I could go. Because again, this is pay-per-view. The first pay-per-view coming to Hamilton. No, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say this right now. Certain people are ready to argue. The Royal Rumble 88, albeit the first probably major WWF event to be held in Hamilton, that wasn't just a house show. It was a free special on USA Network. Look it up before you start arguing like an idiot on social media. So I'm a little salty. But anyway, I'm just thinking of that time where I thought I was going to go. That's what's going to be salty. So anyway, the show approached. I remember watching the Go Home Raw, being really excited. Again, the whole stipulation is, okay, so the forefront is Stone Cold Steve Austin had triumphed over The Undertaker at SummerSlam. But yet, Vince McMahon was so desperate to get the title off of Steve Austin because he didn't have The Undertaker in his back pocket like some of the others that he had tried to get the title off of him. They tried to use to get the title off of him, I should say. But he struck a deal with The Undertaker and Kane, making a triple threat match where The Undertaker could not pin Kane, Kane could not pin The Undertaker. They were forbidden by Vince. In exchange for the title shot, they have to watch his back. Now, obviously, Taker and Kane don't like Vince, but again, the WWF title means that much to them. Kane was a former champion for a day. Taker had a couple reigns at this point and had been on a quest to get it back for the last several months as well. So it was a good story. Taker had gone heel before this. Now, I should mention that Nitro, where Ric Flair returned, it went up against a pretty hefty Raw, where you had the main event of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Ken Shamrock for the first time, which was pretty intriguing, and it was actually a pretty good match. And The Undertaker had turned heel that night, so it was a pretty eventful night. But on Nitro, not only did you have Ric Flair's return, which was the big selling point, but you also had Sting and Goldberg for the first time on television. So clearly Nitro won that night, and that's not a surprise. But either way, so The Undertaker was pretty much a heel now. He hadn't been a heel since 91. So almost 7 years since he was a heel. Sorry, he was early 92. Sorry, I'm mistaken. There was a Saturday Night's Main Event in early 92. He turned heel, but still, nearly 7 years since Taker had been a heel. And even by late 91, fans were cheering him anyway, so regardless. But even so, Taker didn't lose his entire fan base. And in my eyes, Taker's always been one of my favorites, but in this feud, I was going for Austin. You know what I mean? I love Taker, but I was getting sick of watching Vince trying to screw Austin all the time. Not sick in the sense where I'm going to change the channel. Sick in the sense where I fucking hate you, Vince, because you're a goddamn great heel. But yeah, and another thing about that is there was always, these master plans Vince would come up with. But this was called the master plan. But Vince would always try to come up with plans to get the title off of Austin. And they almost work, and even temporarily they'd work, like with Kane's one-day title win. But I'm thinking to myself, Austin's story he's always overcome the odds, no matter how much Vince has stacked it against him. And now, is it too insurmountable? Is it too much for him to overcome? But I'm thinking in my head, no, he's overcome everything Vince has thrown at him. He's just going to do it again. Man, I really wanted to be at this show. But yeah, so as the day approached, I was losing a lot of hope. So the weekend of the show, we're watching a football game at my Aunt Teresa's place. A bunch of us were there watching the Ticats against the BC Lions. For whatever reason, even during these glory years of the Ticats in 98, 99, they always had trouble with BC. for whatever reason, they always had trouble with the Lions. Just prior to this, a few weeks, or just close to a month before this, they had a really ugly win at home against them. A bunch of us were at that game, and then now we lost them in a narrow margin with a lot of bad calls. I remember we were just losing our shit. Oh my God, what is this officiating? And the Ticats were kind of looking a little sluggish, even though we were still in first place. So that bothered us a bit, and we talked about my cousins and I talked about the breakdown pay-per-view again. We all wanted to go. And it was just getting more and more disappointing that we weren't going to be there. None of us were. So as we're driving home, as my dad's driving me home, he says to me, I know that pay-per-view's tomorrow. Do you want Wayne to come over? My cousin Wayne. And he said, of course. Or sorry, I said, of course. Long day, sorry. I said, of course. And I'm thinking, okay, well, at the very least, I'll get to watch it with someone. I won't be watching it alone. I watch a lot of pay-per-views alone sometimes. So, going to bed that night, I'm thinking, maybe there's still hope. Maybe there's still hope that I can go. Maybe there's still hope that my parents are hiding tickets. So next day, it was a really beautiful day. This was September 27, 1998. A beautiful day. It went up to like almost close to 30 degrees. I remember I was wearing shorts the whole day and just playing out back, whatever, tossed around my football, just stuff like that. So then what I do is I get a call from my buddy John, and he says how he's just leaving for the pay-per-view now. He's really excited. And again, I'm like, oh, shut up. Again, I'm happy that he's excited to go, but again, we're red hot at this point. WWF is red hot at this point. You know what I mean? It's amazing the numbers that this company was doing at this time. It's amazing that even WCW, just amazing how wrestling in general is just super hot. So as I take a shower, I get out, so get ready to get changed. I notice on my bed, for whatever reason, because it wasn't there when I went into the shower, my Austin 316 shirt has been laid out. I'm thinking, that's interesting. So I got dressed, I put on the shirt, and as I'm walking downstairs, I'm getting ready to put my shoes on, thinking we're getting ready to go pick up Wayne, because I should have figured it out when my dad asked me to come for the drive. I overhear my mother. Now I'm now getting my shoes on, and my shoes are at the top of the stairs for the rec room. I guess my parents didn't hear me coming down the stairs, so I overheard my mom say, "You have the tickets." My dad, shh. I can hear my dad shush her. My mom, oh, he's upstairs. And right away, I tiptoe my way back upstairs. And I start almost doing a celebration in my room. I'm like, I am going. And obviously, I assume right away Wayne's coming with me. So, as I am excitedly getting ready, I'm trying to contain because I don't want my parents to know I found out. So my dad says, "You ready to go?" And so, yeah, we got in the car. My mom was in the passenger seat with them. I'm in the back. We go pick up Wayne. Now, my parents are still playing it up. They hadn't said anything to me yet. And Wayne was ready to go. Again, Wayne always enjoyed watching pay-per-views as well. He liked Stone Cold Steve Austin quite a bit. And as we're getting in the car, I notice we're heading downtown. We're not heading up the mountains, but even though I already know, but still, like, the anticipation's building. Suddenly, my dad at the stoplight takes out a couple tickets out of his visor, the car visor, and hands them to me. And Wayne had no clue. So of course, I acted surprised. Wayne was legit surprised. And even though I was still feigning surprise, that the excitement was real. I'm going to be watching a WWF pay-per-view with the biggest star in the industry, main eventing as a champion. It's going to be right in the arena where I've seen so many events, not just wrestling, but you name it, concerts, hockey, even basketball. But it was still really early. So we're counting down. So we're killing time. My dad drops us off at the Pizza downtown near Gore Park. Now, as we're at the Pizza, Wayne and I are just still killing time. My dad gave me a bunch of money. Wayne had a bunch of money as well. We each got like a slice of pizza, a can of pop. We're just chit-chatting about the show. You know, I said to him, can Stone Cold overcome this? So the odds are just completely stacked against him. I don't think he can really do all that much. And Wayne said, oh, he'll win. He always does. So this is what he does, Wayne says. He always has odds stacked against him, and he always comes back and wins. Vince can't beat him. I said, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So we're killing time. We're walking around the mall. It's just we're just waiting for the show to start. So finally, we start lining up outside of Cops. There we are, Cops Coliseum. Large line already. People waiting to get in. We just do the thing. We start chatting with random fans in line. One fan says he heard Triple H had a knee injury and wasn't going to be there. Triple H was scheduled to defend the Intercontinental title, which he had just won at SummerSlam over The Rock against Mark Henry. So, that sucks. I want to see Triple H because we're big DX fans as well. So we're waiting. We finally get in the arena and all the atmosphere and our seats. Okay, so say we're facing the ring from the entranceway. We are to the the entranceway was on our right, but we're in the lower bowl, and we're like we can see the Titantron right in front of us, and it's like backwards because again we're looking out from the other side, not the side the fans are seeing. I hope I'm giving you a good perspective here. Maybe not, but I'm trying. So we were in the lower bowl next to the entrance, like right next to it, where our seats were on the aisle, and we were right next to the area that's tarped off because of the screen in the entranceway. So we're thinking this is going to be great. So we still had a good direct view of the ring. And let me tell you, the anticipation was building even for Heat to start. That's right. Sunday Night Heat, SummerSlam had become the official countdown show to the pay-per-views. The pay-per-views have now been moved from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Heat aired at 7 now every Sunday, but the pay-per-view shows this would be the final hype for them. You know, it's a great plan. Get extra pay-per-view buys. I didn't even realize that back then, because even Wayne asked me once. He said, "Why do they put the show before pay-per-views now?" I'm like, "It's a good way to get people to buy it last minute, just like the countdown shows." And he nodded his head, said, "Good point." So at this time, I'm 15. Wayne is almost 13. But we are at the peak of our fandom here. Now, Wayne and I had gone to shows together before. We had gone to a house show a year before this in May of '97. I might discuss that on a future podcast. And people are starting to chants. There's woos all through the crowd. Yes, even back then, even in 1998, when Ric Flair's still in WCW, mind you, with the return he had just made a couple weeks prior, he was red hot again. People were wooing through the crowd, woo, woo, like they do before shows, still to this day. Well, somewhat to this day, you know what I mean. No crowd since March. But yeah, it was just a great atmosphere already. People were holding a Hogan sign, and they've got booed. It got booed mercilessly. My God, did it ever. And Wayne and I are just laughing. We are just laughing. So we're getting ready for Heat to start. We didn't want to get our snacks right away because we wanted to kill some time. And we wanted to get some T-shirts too, but here was the problem. Now, even though my parents did not love the wrestling product at this point, they knew what it had become. They knew Sable was half naked on TV every week. They knew that Stone Cold Steve Austin swore, gave the middle finger, blah, blah, blah. To them, that wasn't wrestling. Especially to my dad, who used to be a fan. My dad's fandom was pretty much dead at this point. He still had an appreciation for The Undertaker, but that literally is about as far as it went. So I see an Austin T-shirt. It was of a skeleton dressed like Austin, giving the middle finger. And I think to myself, There's stuff I can't wear at home. There's stuff I can't wear at school. The DX shirt saying "suck it" on the back, even though the U was taken out. But I can't wear that at school or at home. New Age Outlaw shirt look pretty cool too. Your ass better call somebody. It says on the back. Can't wear that. I'm like, damn it. I am looking for a epic T-shirt here, some merch to buy to commemorate the show, and nothing was acceptable. So that was a little bit of a pisser. I was contemplating getting an Undertaker shirt maybe, but I already had two at this point. I'm thinking I don't want another one. Like I wanted another Stone Cold shirt because my Austin 316 shirt, I actually got that accidentally stumbling upon it at Aquafest, which was a festival that was held by the Bayfront area here in Hamilton. I couldn't replace it because there was just no acceptable shirt I could wear at home or at school, and the Minus 316 shirt was already starting to fade a bit. I think it was a pretty cheaply made shirt. It wasn't one of the ones that was sold. It wasn't I should reiterate here, it wasn't the one that you're all familiar with. It was a little different. The logo on the back was kind of strange. It wasn't the smoking skull. But it wasn't going to be a shirt. The logo was there. It was authentic. I knew that. But still, it's one of those ones that they would distribute to like places like Music World or Toys R Us or whatever. It wasn't like the stuff that you get at the arenas or order on their merchandise catalog. So yeah, I was a little disappointed at that. But at the same time, who cares? You know what I mean? I'm at a show, live pay-per-view. It is finally happening. So we get back in our seats and we're trying to look at some merchandise, and we're getting ready for Sunday Night Heat. It's finally underway. We see Jim Cornette and Shane McMahon come out. They get booed. Both of them get booed pretty heavily. There was a slight Cornette sucks chant in the crowd, at least in our section anyway. I realized. I'm trying to actually look for, even because I had pretty good vision at that point, and Cops Coliseum is large, but you can still see pretty well throughout the arena. I was trying to find John and Adam because I think they were on the floor, if I'm not mistaken, or if not, they were close, like in the lower bowl, like near the front. And I was looking for them, and I thought I saw John, but I wasn't sure. Either way, so he gets underway. Wayne and I are just really excited. We're cheering, we're screaming. And I should mention, literally 3 minutes before he went on the air, Wayne and I noticed a steel cage finally. I don't know how we didn't notice that before, but we just weren't paying attention. I think because we were just looking throughout the crowd and looking at the ring. We had steel cages above the ring. Literally 3 minutes before he went on the air, we realized it. So right away, to open the show, out came Vince. Now Vince didn't have music at this time. He wouldn't have no chance in hell until shortly after the Royal Rumble in '99. Briscoe and Patterson came out, and the heat on Vince right away gets the crowd amped up. There was a slight "you screwed Brett" chant, which Wayne and I were both chanting. And the thing, this is even before Wrestling with Shadows was still a couple months away. But still, there's a "you screwed Brett" chant. So he mentions the fact that Ken Shamrock, The Rock, and Mankind had their triple threat match for the number one contendership on Raw, interrupted due to the interference of The Undertaker and Kane. Now, Vince, however, said that this time there'll be a rematch, and it will be in the steel cage. That got a big pop from the crowd. And in hindsight, now I see it like, wow, Vince really was trying to get some good last-minute buys to the show, and it worked. Spoiler, not really. The show drew well over 300,000 buys, and I think it was the second largest in-your-house pay-per-view next to, I think it was Fully Loaded, which was in July. So still a really good number. So McMahon also stated that if anyone interferes in Austin's match, main event tonight, that he will be Austin would be automatically stripped of the title. The crowd were all chanting Austin. Wayne and I are just right into it right away. Like, we're going nuts. We're amped up for this. Again, my goosebumps had geesebumps. McMahon, of course, had to do his thing. The only regret is that the show's taking place in Canada. Loud heat for that one as well. Vince knew how to make people just hate him. And he guarantees that Austin will not leave the ring as champion. Yeah, shut up. Of course he will. Oh, little did we know. So the first match on Heat was Golga of the Oddities, aka the late John Tenta, taking on Masha the Headbangers. Now, the Headbangers were starting to teeter on a heel turn at this point. The Oddities, when the music hit, it got a great reaction. The Oddities were over with live crowds. They were a good house show act, I would say. They were the type of the group that could get a crowd really pumped up. And yeah, like I said, this crowd was so pumped up. And again, the Oddities got a big cheer. It was not a very long match. I remember because Wayne was like, why are they playing their music for so long? They played the Oddities music for like 5 minutes while they stood in the ring. I didn't realize it at first, and it wasn't until the match started. I'm like, I just figured out it's a commercial. That Heat's not on pay-per-view, Heat's on TV. And he's like, oh, okay. So Golga won the match pretty quick. And I guess it was a little bit of a post-match kind of scuffle. Nothing really big, but the crowd was really amped for this. Like I said, it was really quick. So again, like Heat before pay-per-views weren't known for long matches. Hell, Heat in general wasn't known for long matches at times. Hell, WWF in general wasn't known for long matches on television most of the time at this point. That's right, bro. They weren't, bro. Either way, no, I enjoyed WWF in '98. That's just a little joke on my part. So Michael Cole mentioned how Triple H was apparently attacked in the locker room with a pipe. So the rumors of the knee injury, I guess, were true, and I said, wait, I guess that's how they're writing him out. And Mark Henry comes out, and he was a scheduled opponent, and we just did not give a crap about Mark Henry. We really didn't. I honestly, I became more interested in Mark Henry in 2011 when he started the Hall of Pain thing. And it's just at this point, 98, Wayne and I, neither of us gave a shit about him. Because at this point, we both went to the washroom. The Nation's music hit. We thought it might be the Godfather bringing out hose. We ran back and found Mark Henry. So McMahon comes back out again. Now, Mark Henry was hitting on China a lot at this point, and we're just like, hoping China will come out and just beat the crap out of him. So there will be a match tonight on Heat. It's announced a steel cage match, non-title, against Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I'm like, okay. Suddenly we just got interested in Mark Henry. Because we're thinking, okay, let's probably soften up Austin before the main event. So next up, it was Kai and Tai and the Hardys. Now, the Hardys were not stars. They weren't even winning matches at this point. They were enhancement guys. So as soon as we saw the Hardys walk out, I look at Wayne, I'm like, oh, I wonder who they're losing to tonight. And Kai and Tai comes out. And it was not Taka, it was Funaki and Teo. Sadly, Taka and Dick To-Go weren't there. Yamaguchi-san came out. He got some good heat. So we're watching the match. It's a pretty exciting match, actually. And I remember Jeff just taking some really insane bumps. And to our surprise, we couldn't believe it. Now we're paying attention to the match. We're enjoying it somewhat. But then the Hardys win. Wayne and I just both look at each other. Like, they actually won. We said at the same time, they actually won a match. Like, wow. We were actually excited to see the Hardys get their first, I'm pretty sure it was their first televised win. So we were really happy about that. So next up, we had Billy Gunn taking on Skull and 8-Ball. It was technically a triple threat match made by Vince. But really, we all know it's a handicap match. Billy Gunn was scheduled for another match later that night, a 6-man tag. Apparently, this is like Vince is punishing him for teaming up with Austin on Raw. And of course, DOA wins. We're not really paying attention because we knew Billy was screwed. And then so finally, we're notice heat's about to go off, like not about to go off the air, but it's getting there. So Vince comes back out with Taker and Kane this time for the steel cage match. Now Mark Henry's music hits, he doesn't come out, and we saw backstage where China bashed him in the head with the lead pipe, and I guess we're supposed to be the same lead pipe he took Triple H out with. So there was a tech guy in the ring, like one of the crew, sorry, ring crew guy in the ring, helping set up the cage. Vince went near him. He took off his hat, took off the wig, and it's Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the place comes unglued, to use the old cliche. Yes. Literally, the roof blowing off the place, to quote the late great Gorilla Monsoon. You know what came next. Big pounding. Taker and Kane trying to get in the ring. They couldn't get there. Austin's music hits and heat goes off the air. That's a good way to really sell a pay-per-view. Then, okay, it's showtime. Wayne and I are anxious. We're getting ready. Pay-per-view. I can't believe it. No more commercials. No more heat. We are ready for the pay-per-view to begin. So, amazing video package to kick off the show. Mr. McMahon's Utopia. If you haven't seen this, you have to watch The Master Plan. So damn sick and tired of watching you walk around with that belt. Oh, so good. And again, we're just in anticipation, but I have to say, okay, I'm actually fast forwarding a bit here. Just before the show started, we saw that the tarp, a couple kids sitting near us noticed, lifted up the tarp, not lifted it up, but like just like when you take a little peek behind a curtain, almost literally here, you could see what is now known as the gorilla position, or was always known as it, but still we didn't know that's what it was called back then. And we're looking, and because they say it's like Wayne and I can overhear these kids like, wow, this is before he was about to finish, like before the cage was getting set up. And like, wow, like we could see Michael Hayes. Doop, doop, doop. And I said to Wayne, I'm like, pretty sure that one guy there looks like Brother Love. I don't know, just something about him. And we saw Owen Hart, and we could see him putting on his Argos jersey. Like, why is he wearing an Argo jersey? Like, oh yeah, because he's a heel. We know he's gonna get cheered here. So we figured he'd be opening the show. But now as the show began, and now we're all just peeking through Gorilla throughout the show. So it's like literally almost pulling back the curtain. Like again, we knew wrestling was predetermined at this point. We knew it was a work, but at the same time, we didn't care. We just loved the show, and we loved wrestling. That part didn't bother us. So as the show gets underway, the opening, we're excited. I remember even when even before, again, I'm going back and forth here, but that little video, the WWF video that would like air before Raw back then, that instrumental, or just really get you hyped up. People were cheering at that. Like that's how I ended up this place was. I'd imagine most venues are probably like that before a show. So they see the little opening, 20 second video. But then the Mr. Man's Utopia thing was brilliant. I love that video package, and it just made me more excited. So Edge and Owen Hart. Edge got a really good reaction here. Maybe it's because he's so close to his stomping grounds. You know what I mean? He was obviously he was from Orangeville, but he was built from Toronto. And either way, he wrestled a lot all over Ontario. So before he made it big, Edge got a great reaction. Owen, the place was about to come unglued. He came out the Argos jersey, got him a bit of heat, but people were still cheering him. Wayne and I just laughed. They're like, "You're wearing the wrong jersey, bud." Like, check the standings. Check the standings, I yelled. Of course, me being the big Cat fan, right? But this was a really fun match. I remember being really into it and thinking, these guys could probably have a good feud. This match was just kind of signed randomly. There was not a real feud really between them. And it was a lot of fun. And then we're looking, as we're watching the match, getting right into it, the crowd's really hyped up for this. And then suddenly we see a guy that I'm like, wait, that guy at ringside looks like Edge. Edge gets distracted, gets rolled up, and Owen wins the match to a great reaction. Now, it's great to have a match where both guys got a really good reaction from the crowd. And then, who's that other guy? He looked like Edge. It didn't occur to me because, again, I knew Hardcastle and Cage, the Suicide Blondes. And yet, it didn't occur to me that was him. I didn't realize until maybe a couple weeks later. I should have known. Now, granted, he doesn't look that much like Edge, but from a distance, he does. I mean, he was dressed in the Gothic wear. We knew Edge was having some issues with Gangrel, but we didn't really put two and two together at that point. So, yeah, it was a great match to start the show. Yeah, everybody's looking through Gorilla. I wasn't always. But then we could see, well, I did briefly before the second match, I saw Too Much, later known as Too Cool. Brian Christopher, Scott Taylor, Grandmaster Sexay, Scotty Too Hottie, not yet. They came out. They got actually some pretty good heel heat too, because they're just very unlikable. And then what does everybody want? And the crowd actually popped huge for Al Snow. Head. Wayne hated Al Snow. Some reason Wayne did not like Al Snow, never did. And I'm like, oh, and I'm getting ready to know Wayne's just giving me that look like, oh, come on. Like, really? This guy? Like, that's what he's thinking. It was Al Snow and Scorpio against Too Much. It wasn't an overly memorable match, but, you know, it was fine. Had a good finish. Al Snow gets a little carried away, even hits his own partner with head, but he eventually win with a snowplow for his team. Like, great. Al Snow wins. I was happy. Al Snow was over with the Hamilton crowd. There was an interview backstage from Michael Cole to The Undertaker and Kane. They're getting booed while they were on screen. A little bit of cheers, I guess, for The Undertaker. And Cole asked that burning question, who will do the honors of pinning Steve Austin and becoming the champion? Undertaker says they have an understanding. I'm like, interesting. I'm thinking, I said to Wayne, they're probably going to turn on each other once again. And Austin's going to think, I said, that's Austin's going to win. They're going to turn on each other and he's going to capitalize. That's the only way he can overcome them. Next up was Mark Merrow and Draws. I swear I was the only Draws fan. For some reason, I like Draws. And this was before Beyond the Mat. Granted, puke had already happened. But still, this was before he's kind of like, before we saw that whole thing. So, Draws, I don't know. For some reason, I liked him. I don't know what it was. But he didn't get any reaction at all. Merrow got a really good reaction, but we think mainly that was because of Jacqueline, because every time she interfered, it seemed the crowd cheered. Merrow won the match. Was, again, nothing overly memorable. So next up was Vader and Bradshaw. At this point, the crowd is starting to die a bit from the first match. So I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I even said this. Vader's a hard hitter. Bradshaw's a pretty hard hitter. This might be pretty good, I said to Wayne. Wayne's like, who cares? Wayne did not give a shit. I said, oh, Vader was good. And then Wayne's like, yeah, Vader was good in WCW. I'm like, fair point. And again, Wayne, by no stretch of the imagination, throughout his wrestling fandom, was never a dirt sheet reader. He was never what you would call a smart fan that way. That just wasn't him. He was just a regular fan. And that's, to reiterate, that's not a criticism at all. I was still just a regular fan at this point. I didn't read the dirt sheets. I called that, I mentioned it before on another podcast. I called that wrestling line, but that only told you so much. And either way, I wasn't rating matches. I wasn't saying, oh, that guy can't work or anything I wasn't doing that sort of shit. There's wrestlers I liked, wrestlers I hated, wrestlers I didn't want to watch. To be fair, at this point, I didn't really care about Bradshaw, but I'm thinking, okay, a match with Vader might be pretty good. So, this is actually, in my opinion, I didn't care for it much back then. This is a pretty underrated match. It was fun. Just watching these two beat the piss out of one another. Even back then, I'm thinking, okay, this isn't too bad. It was more interesting than the last two matches, even though I loved Al Snow and I like Draws. But I still felt this had a lot more intensity to it, and Bradshaw won. Wayne wasn't even really paying attention. He was too busy peeking under the tarp for the gorilla position, and and what was he was saying? He said he saw D'Lo getting ready. No, Wayne loved D'Lo. I'll get to that in a second. So again, the match ended. Bradshaw won. Wayne says to me, "Wow, Vader really has fallen far down the ladder," or something like that. He says he's he's. I can't remember the last time he's won a match. And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, I can't think of it either. I was thinking like Goldust at the Rumble. I seriously thought that was the last time Vader won. I know he had won since, but it didn't occur to me. I think he had, like, got a couple wins on Shotgun, but I didn't catch Shotgun every week. So yeah, that match happened, and then D'Lo and Gangrel. Now D'Lo had just lost the European title, which I rubbed in Wayne's face because Wayne hated X-Pac. Wayne hated X-Pac with a passion as well. I think Al Snow and X-Pac were two of his least favorites at this time. And I bribed him, and he's like, he'll get it back, just watch. And he was facing Gangrel. Now Gangrel got a nothing. We thought like he was like a cool looking character, but some of the crowd didn't seem to really care all that much. D'Lo got some good heat on him because D'Lo had the whole thing, you're the one who sucks, Punk, not me. And then the crowd was started a bit of a D'Lo sucks chant. So D'Lo had some really good heat. So Mark Henry tries to interfere. It helps. D'Lo wins, and but Gangrel gets his revenge by pretty much spitting the red liquid, as they called it, and Henry's eyes, and he gets a DDT, the Impaler on D'Lo. So again, even though the crowd was a bit more lively for D'Lo booing him, still, it seems as though they were losing the crowd at this point. Now, I was still enjoying the show. I'm just going by what was around me. And then we saw the cage begin to lower. And the pre-match promos for this were hilarious. The Rock had just turned face. I think people were ready to cheer him because they just loved his character. Now, The Rock was doing the whole, it was what's it called? Sugar testes or whatever, right? I remember that was the phrase this time. It didn't last. It wouldn't become part of the Rock's repertoire. It's one of those like one-off things, or one like you say a couple times maybe, if that. That would always funny. And Mankind would say how it sounds like a breakfast cereal. And how he said he would. What was Mankind's big line? Oh, yeah, he turned down Monica Lewinsky in high school. So the three of them come out. Mankind gets a pretty good reaction. Ken gets booed mercilessly, which is weird because he wasn't quite a heel yet. He was starting to. He was starting to inch towards a heel turn, but he wasn't fully there yet. But he got booed pretty loudly here, so it's a great heat on him. And The Rock, that was the biggest pop of the night so far at this point, even bigger than Owen. Yeah, The Rock was over. Like they were ready for him to be a babyface and cheer him. It almost seemed like The Rock was like, because we're watching his entrance, because we could go down the stairs and lean over the railing to see them come out of the curtain towards the front row of the lower bowl there, and the Rock almost seemed taken aback. Like he was getting great reactions already, but this might have been the biggest pop he'd gotten so far as a face. So the crowd was firmly behind The Rock, and this woke everyone up. And here we are, the cage match. We were freaking. Oh yeah, Wayne was starting to lose. They were starting to lose Wayne as well in this show. They were really starting to lose him, and this was awesome. Just an amazing, brutal match between three great talents. And even Shamrock. Shamrock was on at this point. In this point, Shamrock had gotten really good, the way I see it. All the 17,000 people in this building, and I should mention it was pretty much sold out, pretty much told Vince this night, this is the guy we want. This is the guy, this is like, people had, in the 80s, had Hogan and Macho. We wanted Austin and The Rock. And lo and behold, spoiler, that's what we would get later. Not right away, because they did turn him heel not long after this, a couple months later, another spoiler. I turn him back heel again, but in the long run, it was what was necessary. I'll get to that on a future podcast. This match was just off the charts. People going nuts for everything The Rock's doing, even going nuts for like the crazy shit Mick is doing here, Mankind. Unbelievable stuff. And Wayne and I are both cheering The Rock. We're going nuts for The Rock here. Mick does another jump off the top of the cage. And he misses. Now, Mankind tries to escape the cage, getting the big, glorious, heroic way, but as he's climbing down, The Rock crawls over to pin Shamrock, who'd been knocked out with a chair by Mankind. Great finish. 1, 2, 3. The place erupts. Rocky chant. Oh, it was great. It was great. So again, we're right back in this show. Like I never really got out of it, even though some of those matches were just But again, I was still anxious for what I knew was coming. I was looking forward to the cage. I was looking forward to the main event. So here's a very complex feud coming up next. Val Venus versus Dustin Runnels, the artist. Well, no, okay, sorry, he wasn't the artist formerly known as Goldust anymore, but he was the artist formerly known as Goldust. I don't really know anymore. No, he was just Dustin Runnels here. He was doing the preacher gimmick where, he had found God, he had found spirituality, he had been protesting the immorality of the WWF, not to the point where Steven Richards would later on, but still somewhat not close, because here's the thing. Here's Val. He's the porn star. Yes. Again, for fans, I doubt anybody listening to this doesn't know who he is. But before he was that guy on Twitter who I certifiably nuts, he played a porn star. And it's weird because here he is. You think this guy would be a natural heel. And I think that's what I don't know. I think that's how he debuted. He was getting cheered pretty quick because they loved a guy who could get with the good-looking ladies. I don't know what it was. Something about Val's persona connected with the crowd. Now, at this point, he had stolen Terry Runnels from Dustin. Now, a lot of this feud, it made sense, but it also didn't, because the last time we saw Dustin and Terry together on TV was that interview from their home where Dustin humiliates her and leaves her. He's still Goldust at this point. She had disappeared off TV for several months, almost a year at this point. And then she came back in one of Val's movies. He'd already done Land of the Rising Venus. And this was the preacher's wife. And they showed a video of him in bed with Terry. Dustin sold it great, by the way, with his facials when he saw the video. Like you can see, it's like that moment on The Simpsons where Bart, like slow frames, where you can see the moment where Lisa rips Ralph's heart rate out of his chest. It was like that. It's like if you freeze frame, you can see the point Dustin's heart's just completely ripped out. So, of course, Dustin wants revenge. Now, you would think that the good guy would be the guy whose wife was stolen. This feud was just very weird. Val, I don't know if he was trying for heat here as Terry comes out with him, because when Val's music hit, he got a great reaction. A pretty big pop. And then Val was like grinding with Terry in the aisleway. She came out, she got a good reaction too. But again, I don't know if they were going again. I can't read Vince Russo's mind. Can't read Vince McMahon's mind at this, obviously, but and not many people really talked about this feud all that much since it happened. But I don't know, were they going for heat? Was Val trying to go heel on this? I couldn't tell. Because he was looking at cheer everywhere he went. People just didn't like Dustin's preaching gimmick. And the match itself wasn't too bad. But again, the crowd was so behind Val that it was a match that people were pretty into. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Val won, got a big reaction for winning, and again, Wayne liked Val Venus too. We both love Val. We loved his Big Valboski pre-match promos. And of course, Val's still fresh off a choppy your pee-pee at this point. Yeah, look that up on YouTube. I'm not explaining any further right now. I will in a future podcast, I'm sure. So then next up was the semi-main, as some would say. Jeff Jarrett and the Southern Justice versus X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws. Now, okay, I like Southern Justice in hindsight. The Godwins, I didn't hate the Godwins. I just thought they were just more intriguing as heels, and they've been heels for pretty much about a year, and then they reverted to being Southern Justice, Garrett's bodyguards, which I thought was a good thing for them too. They look like, again, they're both big guys. Dennis Knight and Mark Canterbury, both really big guys. So they looked like they could be bodyguards anywhere in real life. And they dressed the part. I thought they worked well as Jarrett's cronies. Jarrett at this point he sort of lost his hair in a hair versus hair match and had a nice crew cut the next night on Raw or whatever. And he was doing the whole "don't piss me off" thing at this point with the guitar. The Outlaws couldn't do their catchphrase because Road Dogg got hit in the throat a week prior to this. So we were deprived of that, but the crowd did it anyway, even though they just brawled right away as the match began. And you know what? This was a lot of fun. I thought this match was fun. Now, I was so focused on the guitar shot at the end of the match that I missed Gunn hitting the famous, or I suddenly just looked to see him pinning one of the Southern Justice guys in the ring, and that was his match. I'm like, I kind of missed the finish there. The X-Pac got hit in the eye. It was a pretty good shot, too. And actually, as they went back to the backstage area, we looked under the tarp, and we see X-Pac looked legitimately like shaken up there because he was like, they were checking on him. A couple people were checking on him. He was like keeling over, kind of not keeling over. I guess maybe that's over dramatic. I don't know, but he was hunched over. That's a better word. He was hunched over for a good minute or so, and before they let him further into the back. Then we could see Kane walking not without his mask. It was like hanging on like the top of his head, and we see like the black black makeup around his one eye, and that was weird seeing him without the mask. Now, at this point, I don't know who told me. Someone at school told me Kane used to be Isaac Yankem and the fake Diesel. I'd already known that at this point. But again, like I said, knowing this stuff didn't matter to me. I just thought he was cool as Kane. They're ready for the main event. Video package. Like, oh, yes, this is going to be so good. What's Austin going to do? So Kane comes out first, and then remember Undertaker comes out, and Austin attacks him in the entranceway during his entrance, and the crowd is ready for this to go. We were kind of deprived of hearing the glass break, which Wayne mentioned. He's like, we didn't hear the glass break. What the fuck? Like, I know. But either way, we're watching this match, and we're thinking, okay, Austin's not looking too good here. But then there's times where Taker and Kane have their dissension, and that kind of woke up the crowd every time, that like in a big way when they finally started, shoving each other. Whenever Austin was on the offensive, they were, the crowd was cheering. But for some reason, the crowd was not overly hot for this, as I thought they would be. Like they were still, kind of hot for it, but like not near as much as you'd think. I think that's why we still haven't had a pay-per-view to this day. I think that's why the shows we have here are few and far between. I'm guessing. I don't know. But still, I would be surprised if that was true. Plus, Steve Austin hates working Hamilton. Oh, yes, he mentioned this on this podcast. And no, it's nothing against the city or the fans. It's just, he said he felt that he wasn't a lively market, and he thought that, people always got hurt there, which is true. Triple H got hurt there a year prior to this. Dynamite Kid, even pretty much the injury that changed his career and life, happened in Cops Coliseum in '86. I don't know, maybe it's just a bad luck place for some guys. And maybe they just didn't like it because of the travel, because it was so close to Toronto, and Toronto was always so hot. I don't know. Austin mentioned that, actually, that Toronto was always a hot market. But either way, when Austin made his comeback, the crowd woke up. And Wayne and I were still going nuts. And there's Austin chants happening in certain sections and that. The crowd really wakes up when Austin makes the comeback. So finally, The comeback got cut off. Double choke slam. 1, 2, 3. Both Wayne and I's jaws drop. We look at each other like, no, you gotta be kidding. We're like, well, who's the champ? Who's the champ? And of course, here comes Vince. Again, mad heat on Vince again. That woke up a crowd again, too. Vince took the belt, ran away. Austin chases him while Taker and Kane are dumbfounded at what's going on in the ring. They run out. Austin runs out towards the back against Vince. Vince is about to get in his car before saying, you don't have us anymore. It's mine. Flips Austin off. We didn't actually get the audio for that. We could see Vince flipping off Austin. That got enough heat as it was. Then Vince drove away. And that was it. We're booing loud. We're booing the shit out of this. Not because we thought it was a shitty finish or anything like that, just because we hated the fact that Austin wasn't champion anymore. That was the beauty of it. Taker and Kane are walking away. I remember this as Taker's walking towards the entranceway again. This kid, like, as Wayne and I ran down the railing to watch them exit and kind of boo them because, again, even though I love Taker, I loved Austin more in this feud. We're booing. This kid yells, "You suck, Undertaker! You F..." Well, I might as well say, "You fucking suck!" Taker glares up at this kid in a way the kid actually took a step back. I'm not kidding. The kid might have been about Wayne's age, actually, probably about 12, 13. And he took a literal step back and looked like he was going to piss himself. It was great. So we get ready to go. We're talking about, what's going to happen on Raw tomorrow night? Maybe a match between Undertaker and Kane. Everything. We're talking about what might happen on Raw tomorrow as we're leaving. As a whole, I enjoyed the show. Again, it's a live WWF show at its hottest period. Was it its best show in hindsight? No. But was it the worst even? No. It was just a lot of fun to attend live. Would I have enjoyed this much watching it on pay-per-view? Who knows? But that cage match was off the charts. That opening match was really good. Some of the big stars got great reactions, and the crowd was really into them. That main event didn't seem to really captivate the crowd as much as I thought it would, but still, I enjoyed it. It's not the best match that any combination of those guys have had, but again, it was still good enough. I watched it in hindsight. I'm like, there's nothing really wrong with this. So, and that was a great money-making feud, Austin and Undertaker, and throwing Kane in there. So again, we're talking the whole way there, the whole way back to them, because we knew where my dad was parked. So we're meeting in there. I guess my dad had been there about 20 minutes already. So right away, of course, he asked, how was it? Then, of course, Wayne and I, just jibber jabbering, not shutting up, going a mile a minute saying what happened. Because my dad said, because we didn't realize that he was parked in the same area where Vince McMahon was exiting the arena in Cubs Coliseum. My dad said, I could have sworn I just saw Vince McMahon leaving. Like, you did. Because that was the end of the whole thing. He gave Austin a finger, like as we explained. We gave Austin a finger, held up Austin's title, and left. So he was glad we had a great time. But I was glad we had a great time. We dropped Wayne off, went home. I went to bed happy. I wanted to go for months, and I'm glad I did. So, of course, the next day at school, I find John at his locker before class. I said, dude, did you have a great time? He's like, oh, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I said, oh, so did I, man. It was amazing. He's like, what? Were you there? I'm like, yeah, my dad got last-minute tickets. He's like, oh, cool, man. And I told him where we were sitting, and we talked everything about, we were talking about what's going to happen on Raw that night. And, of course, the Raw that night was Austin driving the Zamboni. Yeah. Do you recall that moment, of course? And Vince getting his leg broken by Kane and The Undertaker after he told them off and tried to flip them off behind their back, and they saw. That was an epic Raw. And that was the night where The Rock pinned The Undertaker. Undertaker didn't lose often by pinfall on television. That was a huge deal. So clearly they were ready to make The Rock another star, and this story just kept on going. It was a great night. I got to share with my cousin, who, is like a brother, you know, because I think I mentioned this on the podcast where I have a little sister, but she's a lot younger than I am. She's 14. Like, her and I are close, but back then I had no siblings. I had my cousins. My sister didn't come along until I was 26. So it was good to share that with him. We had a great time. We're still talking about it weeks after. Everything that was happening on Raw, week after week. It was great. And it was great of my parents to get us those tickets. I was very thankful to them for the rest of the year for that. Yeah, it was a great moment, and it was a good turning point for the WWF that set the tone for the rest of the fall to the end of the year. Man, some great things happened following, and of course, I'll probably cover those things on a future episode. But for now, that's going to do it. This was a great trip down memory lane. Great remembering this pay-per-view. So yeah, WWF Breakdown 98 in the books. Next week's episode, going to begin the first part of a two-part series on tape trading memories. That's right. This is the time where I got familiar with a lot of independent promotions, a lot of the old territories, Japan, you name it. I got familiar with it. It's going to be a two-part series. That's coming up next week, and of course the week after. Got some great episodes coming up in the near future as well. Something I'm also going to give away as well in November, two-part on the screw job. The first part's going to be, of course, my memories of it, and the second part, I'm going to be interviewing some local wrestling fans, some local wrestling personalities, getting their thoughts on it. Well, that's it for this week. So until then, I am Bill Chase, and it's only fair. We're reminiscing about a pay-per-view that took place in Hamilton. I quote a wise Hamiltonian, the late great Billy Red Lyons, when I tell y'all, don't you dare miss it. Thank you for listening to Diary of a Wrestling Fan with Bill Chase. If you'd like to make a contribution to the show, just send a gift basket of hair products to Mike Forte.